Let's talk about economics. Some people, especially my nemesis, a Nobel Prize winner, a New York Times contributor, and a professor at Princeton, him and I disagree. Maybe Existential Eddie doesn't know what he's talking about, but maybe he does. Let's give it a thought. Krugman from the New York Times says he's against austerity. He says we should just give countries that are broke more money. The problem with our debt crisis and our economy is that we should borrow more money and pour it in. He says ordinary Americans like you and I can't understand economics. You have to have a degree. We can't even make votes on the basis of economics, our understanding of economics. We have to listen to the experts. The opposite argument of that, and the argument of Existential Eddie, is Caruso economics. Imagine two islands. Each has 100 people on them. What kind of economy should they have? You and I can figure that out. Maybe we're right and maybe we're wrong. We can figure it out. And we can even use Caruso economics in another way. Let's look at actual countries. Let's take Greece. I have an article in True News, Greece goes broke. Greece was overwhelmed in debt and the whole country was going bankrupt. Krugman's argument was that Germany and the other countries, the European Union, should lend them more money. Lend them all the money they want. Then the economy would grow and they would have a surplus and they would pay the money back. Well, I would argue, and austerity proponents argue, and in fact the European Union argues, that no, we're tired of giving them money. They have to learn to tighten their belts. They have to learn to consume less than they produce. What Greece wants to do and many other countries want to do, like the United States, is consume more than they produce. And all you have to do is understand what would happen in an island if the people consumed more than they produced. They couldn't do it. They would have to borrow from the other island, or in this case, Greece has to borrow from the European Union. But at some point, which you and I know, maybe Krugman doesn't know, that people get tired of lending you money. Pretty soon, they say no. Even in our household economics, which Caruso economics argues is no different from international economics. What happens if you borrow more than you earn in your household economics and you just keep borrowing? Well, we know what happens. Your debt gets so high you can't afford the interest payments. Then you go broke. And that's exactly what's happening with Greece. And my argument is exactly what's happening with the United States. We have almost $20 trillion of debt now, and we can afford it because the interest rate is 1% or 1.5%. But Greece is paying 6%. And if we keep borrowing, sooner or later, our interest rates could go up to 6%. At that point, our interest payments would be $600 billion a year. We have no plans of ever paying that back. So our descendants, for the rest of their lives, will pay $600 billion a year just in interest. And just say, for more realistically, maybe our interest payments will only go up to 3%. Then our payments would be $300 billion a year. And all our descendants, your children and your grandchildren, will have to pay that for the rest of their lives, just so we can have more jobs and a more robust economy right now. This is Eddie, Existential Eddie, heading out. Austerity, let's tighten our belts, let's produce more and consume less. Krugman is wrong, Existential Eddie is right. Have a good day, folks.